Between 1450 and 1750, over 60,000 people were put to death for witchcraft in Europe alone. This was not done lightly. These men, women, and even children were tortured in the most sadistic ways imaginable until they confessed to their crimes or gave up the names of their fellow witches. But if the accusations were so obviously false, why did so many people confess or even name others? And how did this period of history affect us today? Hello and welcome to The Witch Hunts, a mini-series looking at the origins, peak, and end of the most extensive and brutal periods of persecution of alleged witches in human history. In this first episode, we'll be looking at how fear changed history forever. To understand what caused such an insane amount of people to be accused, tortured, and killed for witchcraft, we must first look at the state of Europe in the 15th century. There were two main reasons that caused the hysteria to start. The first of these reasons can be summarized in one word: disease. From the Black Death that ravaged Europe in the 14th century to the constant threat of smallpox, it seemed like God himself hated mankind. Add to this the fact that life was generally pretty awful. If you weren't a member of the nobility, your life would be spent working from dusk till dawn for little pay. And if you were a woman, things would be even worse. Women were seen as property and had very few rights. They could own property, but only if they were unmarried, and any money they earned was controlled by their father or husband. Women were also blamed for bringing bad luck into the world. According to a common saying, it was believed that a bad wife could ruin a household, but a good one could make it. You can see where this attitude towards women would cause some serious problems when the idea of witchcraft entered the equation. Now, reason number 2, the Protestant Reformation. While the Catholic Church had been around for centuries, during the 16th century, it started to lose power. Martin Luther's ideas of salvation through faith alone and the general dislike for the Pope's authority caused huge divisions within Christianity. And this was only made worse by the invention of the printing press, which allowed ideas to spread faster than ever before. It seems that people became more critical of the church and less trusting of authority. So now we have a society ripe for manipulation, with people desperate for answers, in a time of chaos and hardship. Enter Satan, the scapegoat. People were already afraid of the devil and his demons, and now he had been given free rein to enter people's lives. With these two major factors fueling the fire, all that was needed was a way to identify these demons' human accomplices. During the Middle Ages, magic and witchcraft were seen as heretical acts against the natural order set by God. The Malleus Maleficarum, or Hammer of the Witches, published in 1486, is considered to be the witch hunt manual. It outlined the supposed characteristics of a witch and the methods of detecting and punishing them. A lot of these stemmed from common stereotypes about women, such as a witch's ability to change their shape at will. Now, while this may seem ridiculous today, remember that there was no scientific method to prove or disprove these claims, so anything was possible. If a woman's skirt was slightly above the knee, she was probably a witch. If she didn't want to conform to gender roles and instead preferred solitude, she was probably a witch. If a woman was highly skilled in herbal medicine, she was definitely a witch. Any woman who deviated from the mold was suspect. And once a woman was accused of witchcraft, her fate was sealed. Accusations could come from anywhere and were often based on nothing more than hearsay or a confession extracted under torture. Once accused, the local priest would be informed, and a church court would be convened to decide the woman's fate. The court was usually presided over by a male clergy member, despite the fact that according to church law, women were forbidden to appear in court. However, in cases of witchcraft, The accused women were denied the right to a fair trial and were almost always found guilty. After all, the entire court system was run by men and women were seen as inferior. Their testimony was not as valid as a man's. To top it off, the accused were not allowed to have a lawyer, and if they tried to defend themselves, they were often cut off before they could speak. Confessions were seen as the best way to extract the truth. And if the accused woman admitted to being a witch, she could expect to receive a lighter sentence. However, these confessions were often coerced through torture, sometimes lasting for hours. And if the accused did not confess, she would be tortured until she either admitted to being a witch or gave up the names of her supposed accomplices. Torture came in many forms, from the rack to the water cure, but perhaps the worst was the breast. Here, the accused would be suspended by ropes from hooks inserted into her wrists and ankles, leaving her dangling like a puppet. Sometimes weights would be tied to her feet to ensure she didn't float away, but occasionally, a more sadistic torturer would let go of the rope to watch the accused slowly fall and break. When the accused finally confessed or gave up her accomplices, she would be taken to the executioner, usually by the same torturer that had been extracting her confession. The executioner would ask the accused if she would like to recant her confession and return to God. If she agreed, she would be untied and allowed to kneel, as the torturer read her confession aloud. However, if she stuck to her original story, she was led outside to face the crowd and her execution. Now, you might be thinking, why didn't these people just run away? Well, because of the nature of the accusations, this was almost impossible. Many of the accused were too poor to travel and had never been further than their home village. Others had been specifically instructed by the torturers to not leave town, as that would be proof of their guilt. And there were also laws prohibiting peasants from traveling without permission. So basically, they were trapped. As the witch hunts progressed, the accusers became more bold and the punishments more severe. Soon, just being in the wrong place at the wrong time was enough to get someone accused. The cases of George Burroughs and Bridget Bishop are particularly gruesome examples of this. Burroughs was executed in 1659 after a single witness claimed that he had seen him levitating and had heard him say, "I will be revenged on you." Bishop was accused of turning a young girl into a cat and then eating her. Even though both accounts were completely implausible, both Burroughs and Bishop were found guilty and hung. What makes these stories especially horrifying is that they are far from unique. There were thousands of people just like Burroughs and Bishop who were accused of crimes they did not commit and punished without mercy. After the American Revolution, new ideas took hold. Liberal and conservative political thought emerged, along with new ways of thinking about religion. As the Enlightenment progressed, more and more people began to reject superstition and folklore in favor of reason and logic. By the end of the 18th century, belief in witchcraft had largely disappeared in Europe and America. It's hard to imagine now, but for centuries people really believed that witches were real and they were everywhere. We should take a moment to consider how much has changed. 300 years ago, a woman could be killed for practicing medicine. Today, we have female doctors and even a female president. But this progress would not have been possible if it wasn't for the brave men and women who stood up against the witch hunters. If you enjoyed this video, please like it and subscribe. That way you won't miss out on future videos. Thanks for watching.